Hey, what's up YouTube? I am Lauger, and I'm here today to talk to you about role-playing games. Now, perhaps you've watched Big Bang Theory or maybe one of your other favorite shows, and they have talked about a tabletop, pen and paper role-playing game. And you decided, okay, I want to play. Now where do I go? Well, when you go down to your local bookstore and you start looking through all the books and all the games, and there's just a lot of stuff. Which is why I decided to start doing this channel. This channel is going to be about role-playing games. It's going to cover the Pathfinder role-playing game, which is the one I play. And the reason I started this, I was actually going to look to buy another a module, which is a short adventure, a pre-written adventure to run. And I started looking, I just happened to look at all the books they had sitting there, and I knew there was a lot. And it just hit me, it was like, wow, there's just a lot of stuff. And it was like, okay, it's kind of overwhelming for a new person who might want to get started. To go down and go, okay, now what do I need? What's this? What's that? So I thought I'd break it down a little bit and go over what you really need to play. And I talked about this with one of the groups I'm in. And one of the things that the most important thing you probably need to play is the want to play. And by the want to play, I mean you have to want to actually be part of a group, sitting around a table, or maybe sitting on in front of a computer, because there are websites like Roll20 that simulate the tabletop experience. But you have to be able to be with a group of people. It cannot work as a single player thing. You cannot be both the game master, dungeon master, the person telling the story, and the player playing the story. It doesn't work. Now, but the want and desire to play. You have to be able to be with a group of people, you have to want to play, and you have to be willing to commit some time to play. And by time, most sessions in most groups I've been a part of in the last 3-4 years have been 3 to 4 hours. 3 to 4 hours at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, maybe every other week. It depends on the group, it depends on everybody's availability, but usually game sessions are, at least for me, have been 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 8 hours. It just depends on everyone's availability, what people have going on, and how long you meet. I've heard of groups meeting for 8 to 12 hours, but they play once a month. Because that's what everybody's available. So you have to have time to commit, and not only is it time that you set aside during game time, but you need some time away from the game time, to look things over. And I'm not the best at doing this. When I say look things over, I mean, be prepared. Have an idea of what your stuff does ahead of time. And I normally have a good idea, but then comes around and, oh, I want to cast this spell. I have to look the spell back up because I can't remember exactly what it does or its duration or something. So that is a fault of mine, but I hope you guys would take the time outside of the game to know, okay, this spell does this, I have to be this close to do it. And I'll get into that type of stuff in a future video. But you need to have time and a want to play. You also need a group. Now, where do you get a group? And what do I mean by group? Well, group. Like it says, it's a group of people. It's all the players and the GM for the campaign you're running. Now, maybe you decided you want to be the game master. Well, keep an eye out for a future video. I will cover a little bit more about being a game master and what you need for that. That's slightly different than just being a player. But you need a group. Okay. Maybe you have friends that play. That's how I started. A coworker, friend of mine, said, hey, I'm really thinking about starting doing this. And we played over the app I was mentioning called Roll20. We were playing on Roll20. He's like, I'm going to get started. We're going to use Roll20. We're going to sit on Skype and talk and do this. Does it sound like something you'd want to do? I had never thought about it. I took a little bit, I thought about it, I read a couple things, and I'm like, it sounds like fun. So friends and coworkers, a good place to start. Where else? Family. Now, for me, I got my girlfriend playing. Another friend of mine got his girlfriend playing. And that's how we formed a group. Or maybe, maybe parents, maybe you got teenagers who are into things like this. And you want to do something to connect with them, and maybe this isn't your normal style, but you thought you'd give it a chance, so you do something with your kids. Family is it's a way to start if you want to get playing, maybe. The other options you have, I keep mentioning that app Roll20. On Roll20, if you want to play online over, say, a website which mimics the tabletop grid and stuff, they have a looking for group option where you can put down when you're available, what games you play, and what you're kind of looking for. And you might have somebody email you or IM you or something and say, hey, we're looking for another player. Do you want to join? This is when we meet. This is what we're playing. That's a good spot to start if you're looking for a group, like over say the internet. But let's say you want to play in person, and you want to get to know a group of people where and you don't have none of your friends or coworkers play. Your family doesn't play. Now where do you turn? Check out your local game stores and your local comic book stores. A lot of them have the books, and they have tables where players come in, groups come in and sit down, and they will play their game on a table that they put up, and maybe you go and you watch for a little bit. You happen to be in there when they're playing. I've done it a couple of times, and I've watched, and I've learned a couple things that I didn't know. Most of them also have a looking for group board or a looking for player board, something like that, where you can either see what groups are actively looking for new members, or you can put up your contact information just like on Roll20 and say, hey, I'm looking to start, I'm looking for a group for Pathfinder. This is when I'm available. Here's my name and number. And you might get a call. Existing groups, because you're dealing with people, there are always issues. And I shouldn't say always, but there can be issues. And people are different. I've heard of one player who had invested like 2 years into a group, got pissed off because the GM killed his character over, a couple of bad dice rolls. And said, well, you just killed my character and this isn't fun anymore, and left. And said, I'm done. And they were looking to fill that spot. In my own experience, I had a gentleman that was playing with us. He was another coworker, and had just quit showing up for games. Became unreachable. Just didn't seem to, like, you talk to him at work. Oh yeah, I want to play. Okay, Tuesday 8 a.m. Yeah, definitely. I'll get it. I'll be there. Tuesday 8 a.m. Didn't answer his phone. Didn't show up. Didn't answer Skype. Nothing. Eventually, it just came to the point where the GM happened to say at the time, you know what? You either show up next time or you're out. Period. Done. And that was that. Guy didn't show up. We had to replace him and find a new member. The guy that we ended up finding works out great, and he's not going to believe I'm saying this, but is actually a really good player. And Nori, if you see this, you're welcome. But no, I'm serious. Things happen all the time in groups. Sometimes it's the person that's getting kicked out is the rest of the group saying, hey, we don't want the GM anymore. I've heard of GMs that have their goal is nothing more than to kill players. And they want to run games where players die all the time. Now, to me, that wouldn't be fun. I'd be like, no, okay. The fact that my character can die should be real. But I shouldn't have to bring 4 characters every game session just in case you kill me off 3 times. And I would probably leave that game myself. Some people find it fun. I don't. I put a lot of time and thought into my characters. By the time I'm done playing, to me, the character is actually a person. And I think about them that way, that they are actually a person. They're a personality. That I'm not trying to sound crazy. I know they're not alive or anything like that. But after you spend so long playing a character and thinking about it from a concept of, unlike a video game where, you play Skyrim, you run around doing whatever, and nothing changes. Not really. You can still get your main quest, you can still do things, and everybody, even though they experience and they do different things, everybody's still playing the same person, sort of. In a tabletop role-playing setting, every person's different. You start thinking about what would the person do. It's not about being the best every time. It's about telling a story. And it's like a book character, maybe. Maybe that's a better way to put it. It's like reading, say Sherlock Holmes. You think about later on, what would Holmes do? It's kind of the same thing, right? You think about your characters by the time you're done as a real person that has a thought process that might be different from your own thought process, which gets really interesting. But groups are always looking for players for one reason or another. Maybe somebody moved. For whatever reason, a group might be looking for a player, and your local comic book and game store might be a good place to pick up another player, or to pick up a group. If you are a group looking for a player, that's another good place, if you haven't thought of it, to look for somebody new, and then you can meet new people. So you have the want to play, you have the time available to dedicate to playing, and you have a group. Now what do you need? Well, for the entire group, you need access to a rule book. Maybe you use the PRD or a PDF or something, but you need access to the rules. Now, when you look at all the rule books, there's the core rule book, advanced class guide, advanced race guide, advanced player's guide, the ultimate equipment, ultimate campaign, ultimate magic, ultimate intrigue, unchained. There are a ton of books. Where do you go? What do you need? Core rule book. Really all you need. The rest of it just adds flavor. It changes things and lets you do more stuff, but it's not necessary. Everything you need is in the core rulebook as far as the basics to play. Now, if you're going to run a campaign, keep an eye out for a future video. I will cover there's a little more you need if you're going to be the GM, and I will cover most of that in another video. But from a player standpoint, all you really need is the core rulebook and just access to it at first. Like I said, the PRD is a good place to start. And you need a character concept, which a lot of times you can get from flipping through the core rulebook the first time. What kind of a character do you want to play? Do you want to play a fighting character, a main, like a brawler? Do you want to use swords, spears? Do you want to be up in the front lines and in people's faces? Do you want to be in the back doing support stuff? Do you want to use magic? What race do you want to play? And all of that's outlined in the core rule book, and I will get into character creation in another video. But you need to kind of to play, you need a concept. And that can all be fleshed out once you get your core rule book, once you get a group, because it all comes down to the GM. Now, I don't want to be the guy that says it, but I'm going to say it. Not saying the GM isn't important. The GM is very important to the game. And ultimately, the GM's rules are, or should be, what's enforced. But from my own experience, go back to the rule book. because not every GM knows every rule. I don't claim to know every rule. 3.5, 4 years into it, I'm still learning new stuff because maybe we haven't played that class before, or we haven't tried doing that particular thing for 6 months to a year or more. Okay, how does it work? Make sure, if somebody doesn't know, go back to the rule book and look it up. But you need to so to recap, what you need to play is the want and desire to play. You need to have a group, you need access to the core rulebook, and you need time. Other than that, the rest of it's all extra, and I will cover more of that stuff in a future video.